Hello friends, welcome to the video. This doll is my second video, but actually the first doll I ever made. I made her for Dollightfuls Summer Mega Collaboration. The theme was tropical. I'll explain some of my inspiration and how I came to the design that I did during the video. This Ghoulia Yelps doll was already in this condition when I bought her, so she was ideal for my first transformation. She'd already had her hair cut by a previous owner and she'd lost her arms, which I replaced with the ones from my mannequin doll. I still felt a pang of guilt when I cut off her hair and took off her factory paint though. Most customizers on YouTube use boiling water to get the heads off their dolls. If you saw my Dorothy video, you'll know that I changed to the hairdryer method. I much prefer it. I don't spill water everywhere. This doll didn't have any glue inside her head, which I thought was kind of strange. I'm customizing another Ghoulia and she didn't either. I really like this doll's face shape, so I think I'm going to use her a lot in the future. So due to this being my first video that I filmed, I managed to make quite a lot of filming mistakes. I lost a lot of footage. Some of that was because my head was in front of the camera, but hopefully you can still get an idea of the process and the finished doll. This is how I make my wig caps for my dolls. I cover the head with plastic wrap, then I cut a piece of stretch fabric that is a little bit bigger than the area I need. I'm using an old t-shirt here. I put an elastic band around the rim of the head. I like to do it below the ears to make sure that the cap is big enough, but I'll cut a lot of that off anyway later. Trying to flatten the fabric as much as I can. If you can't spread them out, you can move the wrinkles to the back of the head. Today I'm just using my finger to spread PVA glue all over the wig cap. Then I'm letting it dry and repeating that twice for a total of 3 layers. This time I used the glue straight out of the bottle, but more recently I've been using it with a bit of water, and that's been giving me great results. This is how I make my doll hair from acrylic yarn. I'm cutting lots of pieces, all to the same length. I take 3 strands, make sure that the ends are all aligned, and then tie them onto a skewer or a coat hanger. I find that medium weight yarn is the easiest to use. Here I think I used a light, which meant that I needed to brush it out with a plastic brush first. If you use medium, you don't need to do that. You can just go straight to the metal pet brush. Don't think that the longer you cut the yarn, the longer your finished hair will be. The fibers tend to break at around the same point anyway. Part of this is due to the type of yarn that you used, and part of it is technique, and my technique is pretty bad. For dolls with long hair, you can do a cheat with yarn, but personally I prefer to use nylon, doll hair and reroute, which I'll show you in another video. Once the yarn is totally brushed out, use a straightener on a low setting. I find that 130 degrees Celsius is just perfect to make it sleek and shiny. You need to pull the hair really slowly through the straighteners. Then repeat about 1 billion times. Now you've got doll hair that you can use to make wefts using glue like I did in my Dorothy video. Here I'm going a step further and I'm going to dye the hair a little bit. I wanted to include some of the brighter colours that you see in the sky when it's stormy, so I'm using my chalk pastels to dye the roots yellow and the ends pink. I then wash all of the hair to make sure that none chalk pastel come off once my doll is all put back together. I'm afraid I didn't get footage cutting the wig cap so I'll try and include it in an upcoming video. When I was making her wig, I was thinking about the kabuki characters that have really big bushy hair, and also of geisha. I didn't want it in a bun at the back, I wanted it loose and big, and I wanted to have it up and away from her face at the front. So here I'm gluing the wefts in the opposite direction that they will be parted in. I'm afraid I don't have a lot of face-up footage here. A lot of that was lost to Monoggin being in the way, and some of it was me not knowing how the camera I've owned for 8 years works. Oops. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about how I came to the design of this doll. When I heard the theme tropical, first I thought pina coladas, but then I thought that was too obvious. When I studied art, we were always taught to use the theme as a jumping off point and then to kind of push it and not use it totally literally, and to try and come up with something that people aren't entirely expecting. In Japan here, we've had rain and typhoons literally all summer, so I wasn't really feeling in a pina colada tropical mood. I remembered that when typhoons are downgraded, they're called tropical storms, and immediately I knew that there was the right idea for my doll. I took influence from traditional Japanese storm god Susanoo, geisha, kabuki, samurai, and then the colours I wanted to pull from skies during and after tropical storms. I gave her light blushing to make her seem alive and a little bit more cute. I don't want her to look evil. She's a nature god, and nature isn't evil, it's cruel and beautiful. Her clothing is Japanese inspired, so here I'm colouring the kimono. I decided to use organza. I'm using Prismacolor markers to give a gradient from black at the bottom up to the white that the organza is. When I sewed the kimono together, I left the front edge of the sleeves open rather than sewing them shut like a real kimono. This gives me more choice and control when arranging her clothes and pose for the photos. I also didn't sew the side seams from the waist to the ankle for the same reason. When I was putting the garment together, I sewed a thin jewellery wire into all the seams. Again, this is so that I can control the look of the kimono and make it look windswept. The Japanese storm god Susanoo has a katana, which made me think of samurai. I wanted to include more of the samurai aspects in my doll, including one of her arms being out of her kimono. I also wanted to give her some armor, but not totally traditionally samurai. Some of it is a little bit samurai inspired, like the bracer and the shoulder guard, but her breastplate is less so. I decided to make it with air drying polymer clay, and the character that's written on it is the Japanese character for Storm. I also scratched in some battle damage. When you're painting something silver, it's a good idea to give it a base coat of black. So I did that first and then painted over it with silver, but the details weren't showing. So I decided to go back in with black and edge around all the details. When I painted the shoulder guard and the bracer, I just painted the high edges with silver, leaving the deeper parts black. A character with inspiration coming from samurai needs a katana, and I wanted hers to look like it was made from rain. So I drew a pattern and tried to make sure it was roughly to scale. Then I put a piece of scrap laminator plastic over the top. I found this crush hollow, which I think is also called mermaid scales or mermaid flakes, in the nail section of a 100 yen store. I'm spreading a little bit of hot glue and then pressing the hollow into it. Once I've done that, I added more hot glue on top and squished it between more laminator plastic. Once it was set, I drew around the pattern again and cut away the excess glue. This fairy dust powder came from the same 100 yen store. It gives a shifting, iridescent finish, and this one I think was aqua. I made the crossguard from a tiny piece of cardboard and painted it blue. Katana hilts tend to be wrapped in fabric. I actually did this at first, but it made the whole thing too heavy, so I decided to paint this too, and I actually really liked the way it turned out. The Japanese storm god Susanoo has this kind of halo with balls of fire on it, so I wanted to make something similar for my doll. I was hoping to find teardrop-shaped beads to look like splash droplets, but I couldn't find them, but I did find these faceted ones instead, and I'm really happy with the way they look. I ended up adding kind of a gradient to the beads with a royal blue colour, and I really like how it looked in the end. It gave such a cool effect and made them stand out more against her hair. I wasn't really sure which colour to make her obi out of. I ended on black. Usually you would choose a colour that complements or contrasts with the kimono, but I wanted to keep her colour palette quite dark and moody, just with accents of colour. I decided to make the bow of the obi upside down. You sometimes see this in anime characters, and I thought it could represent how natural disasters turn people's lives upside down. I made this tiny purple bodysuit off camera and I love how it turned out, but it literally took 2 hours. If you want to see a recreation, I can make a video sometime. Just let me know in the comments. In all, I'm really happy with how she turned out, especially seeing as she was my first full custom. I don't think I would have had the confidence to do a full doll so soon after just starting face ups if Dollightful hadn't announced the tropical collab. I'm really grateful because it gave me a push to really start trying hard and making dolls interesting to look at, and also to film and start doing YouTube videos, which I'm really enjoying. We went on a trip to the beach to take some photos. It would have been amazing to be able to get photos of her near one of the shrines in Japan that has torii gates in water, and I'm still hoping that I'll be able to do that sometime, so keep an eye on my Instagram for that. So thank you again for watching and staying all the way to the end with me. If you have questions, comments, concerns, tips, tricks, anything, let me know in the comments below. Give me a like if you like it, and please subscribe. Once I hit 100 subscribers, I can get a searchable YouTube name, which is so exciting. So hopefully I'll see you again in another 2 weeks with another doll. Thanks again. Bye bye.